All right, CNT120, Chap2Lab. We're now working on the diagram number 2 with Drawio. Again, this is going to be our rack drawing that we're going to do. So to start off with, over in my Google Drive, this was the first diagram I did. I'm going to create a new one. I'll do new, and I'll go Draw.io. Let it load. This time I'm going to give it a different file name. I'll call it diagram 2. So over here I will do CNT120, Chap2Lab, diagram 2. Diagram 2. And again, I'm going to leave the Draw.io alone. I'll say create. I do want to make sure it's going into my 120 folder, if you will. So I'll go to pick a folder. It takes a second, but it'll get it in the right spot for me. I'll do list. I'll get my names in order here. I'll go to 120. And I have mine. I have a labs folder, and then I have a chapter 2, for me, chapter 2 demo files. I'm going to make sure that's the folder that gets selected. I'll say select, and that way it'll save it there for me, just, not randomly on my drive. I'll say save. And again, if I give it a minute and I were to come back here, this is the one we did previously. If I give it a minute, it'll show up here as saving into that drive. All right, now I have a blank screen again. This time we are going to, again, reminder, we can search for shapes. If I use the name that's here, I should be able to find it, and we're trying to get as close to that as we can. So over here, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the numbered rack in. So I'm going to search over here under numbered rack. And there it is right there. I'm going to click and drag that on the screen. And I'm going to drag it down. I think I have here, yeah, some like 30 or some. I'm going to go at least 42 would be a full rack, but if I do around 30, so forth, I have enough room to get in when I need to. 42 would be a standard full rack, so I could go down that far if I want to. I'm going to give that a name right away, and I'll call it numbered rack. I'm going to double click on it, and when I do, down at the bottom it'll show up, so I'll put numbered rack. And now I'm going to start searching for these items and putting them in my rack. Again, we're going to try to get as close as we can. On some of these, like the switch and all, if it's a little bit different, that's okay. But we're going to do our best to kind of make it complete. So I'm going to search over here for a power strip. This most likely would be my outlets that I'm using to power the devices in the rack. I'm going to click and drag that onto this the rack over here. And I'm going to try to slide it up into place, up into like the first slot. If I double click on it, the icon for it should show up on the side. So I'm going to do power strip. And since I actually have one of these in the bottom of the rack, I'm going to highlight, Control C to copy. I will click off of it. I'll do Control V paste, and I'm going to drag that guy down here to the bottom, because I think I have one at the top and one at the bottom, and that'll snap right in there for me. I'll then start working my way down through, and I'll do the patch panel, and then I'll have some horizontal cable ducts. So I'm going to do patch panel, and it looks like I had a 48, so I'll grab the 48 port patch panel. I'm going to drop it over here, but I'm going to slide it up in my rack. So I'm going to get it up somewhere in here. And again, these do not need to match the numbers I have here. They do not need to match exactly. I'm going to slide it in maybe like 3 slot there. Again, I'll double click, and off to the side I'll put here 48 port patch panel. There we go. And now we need a horizontal cable duct. That's a cable management panel. It has like a bunch of hooks on to support the patch cables. That's what that is. So we'll do horizontal cable duct, horizontal cable duct, and we'll search for that. There he is. We'll grab that guy, we'll drop it over in the rack, and I'm going to put it right next to it because that's where it would be. If I have a space between, that's a-okay. Off to the right, I'll put in here horizontal cable duct. I should check my spelling. There we go. That looks better. Horizontal cable duct. And I believe I have more than one of those, because I have one by my patch panel, and I also have one by my switch. So I'm going to Control C, Control V, paste it, slide it down a notch or two. Again, these do not need to match the exact numbers I have. And now I'm going to search for a Cisco Catalyst switch. So we'll do Cisco Catalyst switch. Now, you'll see we usually have a bunch of options here. I'm going to look for one of the rack mounts that here says this is a 4948 10 gig Ethernet switch. That looks wonderful. I will put that guy in. Like I said, you don't need to match mine exactly. That is A-OK. And I will put a label over here. I think I just called it Cisco Catalyst switch. Yeah. So I'll just call that Cisco Catalyst switch. In real life, you'd be putting here model number, maybe port count, maybe bandwidth, that sort of thing. All right. Oops, coming down through. We now have an ASA and a router, so we'll do Cisco ASA. That is a basically a firewall device is what that is. Let me see if we have one here. Let's see if there's a different one in here. Maybe not. All right, we'll use that one. That's fine. That looks pretty darn close to it. So we're going to drag that and we'll slide it over here. And I'll just label this my Cisco ASA device, Adaptive Security Appliance. That's what that is. It's basically a firewall. And then I'll do my Cisco 2911 router. This would be the router being used to access the network. Now, what we're actually doing, if you start catching on, is the devices we had up here in this network, we're kind of replicating here. We're trying to replicate a bunch of those devices here in the center part of the network, if you will. All right, the stuff that would be in the equipment closet is what we're kind of replicating. And here, we're going to do more. And we're looking for the basic router icon without any too much extra stuff on it. Let's see if we have more options. There we go. We'll just do the basic. Oh, now we want the rack mount. What are you doing, Mr. Brown? Pay attention to what you're doing. Here, let's keep going. 2901. There's the 2911. There we go. Mr. Brown forgot what he was doing for a second. Imagine that. And I'll label this my Cisco 2911 router. There we go. Okay. And then we need a uninterruptible power supply at the bottom. So we'll do APC Smart and see what we come up with. APC Smart. I'll put UPS in. See what it comes up with. Looks like there's a couple options here. I think the one I picked was, yeah, it was a pretty good size one. So we'll do the middle one on the list here. And we'll put it down towards the bottom. Ooh, he's pretty big. I might have picked the smaller one out. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to try to delete that guy. We'll pick the smaller one over here to make it a little bit closer. It looks a little bit better. We'll put that in there. APC Smart UPS. APC Smart UPS. There we go. And I'll kind of slide that down towards the bottom down there. There we go. And I believe we have all of our pieces. We do indeed. So at this point, I would just make sure everything's there. And again, I made my rack taller than what I had over here. Again, the numbers do not need to match mine, but I'm looking at the main pieces I would have here. So this would now be a diagram I could use to show this is my closet layout. And in real life, I would start putting model numbers on and even serial numbers on these for insurance purposes, inventory and insurance purposes as well. All right, so at this point, I will do a file, and I want to do export. Remember, I need a JPEG or PDF kind of thing. I'm going to do JPEG. I'm going to leave all these settings alone. I'll do export. I'm going to do download because I want it on my PC so I can submit it to D2L. So I'll do download. I'll say OK. And if I go to my downloads folder, I'll come back over here again. Let's go to downloads on my PC. There it is. If I double click on it, that should be a JPEG version of what I just did. And I will submit this to D2L for this lab. So there is the second diagram and pretty much the end of our lab. And if I go over to my lab over here, I just remind you, okay, don't forget about the text file from the first part, the packet tracer part, and then the two diagrams. The logical map that we did, if you will, and then also this rack drawing. So let me slide this over here. I'm going to go to my Chap2Lab folder. And if I open my Chap2Lab folder, it would be these three files here. Diagram 1, you should see a little preview there. Diagram 2, the rack drawing, and then this was my packet tracer text results. Those three files are what I'd be submitting into D2L for my Chap2Lab.